It all started on a seemingly ordinary Friday evening in Los Angeles. Lena Hart, a 24-year-old lifestyle influencer with a staggering 2 million followers across her platforms, vanished without a trace. Her content was all about aspirational living, brand partnerships, and public appearances. She was living the dream, or so it seemed from the outside. But that night, everything changed. Her car was found abandoned on the Pacific Coast Highway. The engine was cold, the doors were wide open, and her phone was still on the driver's seat. It was cracked, but ominously, it displayed a draft of her very last social media post, a chilling 30-second video where she simply said, "Goodbye. Remember me." By morning, the news exploded. Social media went into a frenzy. Hashtags like #RipLenaHart and #MissingInfluencer started trending globally. Fans were heartbroken, speculating wildly, and sharing their condolences, while news outlets jumped on the story. The Los Angeles Police Department quickly classified it as a missing person investigation, urging anyone with information to come forward. Everyone was asking, was it an accident, a kidnapping, or something even more sinister? What the public didn't know then, and what authorities were just beginning to suspect, was that Lena Hart had orchestrated her own disappearance. She was watching all of it unfold, hidden away, monitoring the chaos she had created. But let's rewind a bit. What would drive someone with 2 million followers to do something so drastic? In the weeks leading up to her vanishing act, Lena had reportedly been struggling. Sources close to her revealed she was expressing frustration with her online presence. Despite her huge following, her engagement metrics had begun to decline. Can you imagine the pressure? Constantly having to create content, maintain relevance, and keep those numbers climbing. For Lena, it seems this pressure became unbearable, fueling an obsession with being noticed. She felt like she was losing her relevance, describing feelings of invisibility even with millions watching her every move. This disappearance, investigators would later learn, was her desperate attempt to reclaim attention and control her public perception. The police immediately started their meticulous investigation. They began reviewing surveillance footage, GPS data, and her digital communications. The initial evidence was puzzling. While Lena's car was left in a public location, there were no signs of foul play, no physical evidence pointing to external involvement. This raised immediate red flags. Witnesses claimed to have seen a young woman matching her description at a nearby hotel, but this information was unconfirmed at first, just adding to the mystery. As the days turned into a week, the theories about her disappearance spiraled internationally. The internet was a hotbed of speculation. Was she kidnapped? Had she met with an accident? Or, as some online forums were already whispering, was this a carefully staged event? At this point, no one knew the truth. Lena Hart had meticulously planned every detail of her vanishing act. But even the best laid plans can have tiny cracks. Investigators started noticing small inconsistencies. GPS data placed her in locations she hadn't disclosed, and unusual credit card activity suggested she was alive and moving undetected. These weren't overt actions, but subtle breadcrumbs that slowly began to form a trail. Her family, unaware of the full extent of her plan, released a tearful statement pleading for her safe return. Brands that had partnered with Lena paused their campaigns, issuing cautious statements while awaiting news. The world was holding its breath. Meanwhile, tucked away in a modest motel room on the outskirts of the city, Lena Hart was watching. She observed every reaction, tracking every trending hashtag, every comment, and every news story. The engagement on her account spiked by over 600% within 24 hours of her disappearance. News outlets covered the story extensively, interviewing neighbors, friends, and online followers. Her last video, that brief, emotional farewell, was replayed endlessly. Media psychologists started commenting on how such posts, combined with a high-profile disappearance, dramatically increased viewer engagement and emotional investment. Lena's case was becoming a case study in social media dynamics. Tragedy, it seemed, could capture attention faster than almost anything else. By the third day, investigators were compiling a timeline. They identified potential locations she might have visited, traced hotel records, and cross-referenced credit card transactions. They noted that while Lena's movements were carefully obscured, subtle patterns began to emerge, patterns that would eventually lead them to her. Digital forensics teams discovered scheduled posts, drafts, and automated content that continued to go live even during her absence. This content was strategically designed to maintain engagement, giving the impression of a presence while she was physically gone. Private investigators, hired by her management and sponsors, corroborated these findings. They pointed to inconsistencies in her hotel bookings and those unusual credit card activities. It was becoming clear that this wasn't an ordinary missing person case. The level of precision in Lena Hart's planning was rare, indicating a deliberate, not accidental, disappearance. Lena, in her motel room, was carefully documenting each spike in engagement, noting which content drew the strongest emotional response. According to later police interviews, she admitted her intention was to demonstrate the power of social media visibility and to reclaim the attention she felt slipping away. She wanted to show the world how much she mattered, how much she could influence, even by her absence. As the second week began, law enforcement, private investigators, and digital forensics teams were hot on her trail. They cross-referenced GPS data, hotel bookings, and surveillance footage from multiple locations. Lena had tried to avoid direct identification, but patterns consistent with her known habits and routines started to surface. Detectives interviewed hotel staff, delivery personnel, and local witnesses. One clerk remembered a young woman checking in under a slightly altered name, paying in cash, but later using a credit card for minor purchases. Security cameras, reviewed frame by frame, revealed brief appearances of a figure resembling Lena moving in and out of public areas. These subtle clues screamed one thing: she was alive and mobile. The public interest was still at an all-time high. Social media feeds were saturated with speculation, theories, and viral clips. Experts in digital behavior continued to analyze the phenomenon, highlighting how Lena's case exemplified the complex psychology of social media. A disappearance could generate engagement, sympathy, and notoriety all at once. But for Lena, the meticulously controlled situation was becoming increasingly precarious. The digital footprint she had so masterfully manipulated to create chaos was now beginning to betray her. The delicate balance she had maintained between visibility and concealment was slipping away. Every oversight she had considered trivial: a timestamp on a hotel receipt, a GPS ping, a brief appearance on a security camera was becoming critical evidence. Law enforcement set up surveillance on suspected locations. Unmarked vehicles patrolled the area, and plainclothes officers monitored nearby businesses. By the end of the second week, investigators had narrowed their search to a single motel. The evidence strongly suggested that Lena Hart was hiding within its walls. As Lena watched the unfolding investigation online, her confidence began to waver. The thrill of control was replaced with anxiety. The media's fascination, once a validation of her plan, now heightened the risk of exposure. Every trending hashtag, every news segment, every viral post carried with it the growing possibility of discovery. In later court interviews, Lena admitted she had underestimated the meticulous nature of law enforcement and private investigators. She hadn't fully anticipated their persistence, coordination, and analytical capabilities. Her experiment, designed to manipulate attention and control perception, had created measurable chaos, but it had also left the very traces that would ultimately lead authorities right to her. On the morning of the 15th day after Lena Hart's disappearance, law enforcement executed a coordinated approach to the motel identified through GPS data, hotel records, and surveillance analysis. Unmarked vehicles surrounded the location, and officers entered quietly but decisively. Lena Hart was located in a small room on the second floor. She was alone, monitoring social media engagement and editing posts scheduled to go live during her disappearance. Authorities later confirmed that she had taken extensive measures to maintain anonymity, including using a fake name and altering her appearance slightly, but these precautions were ultimately insufficient. Upon her arrest, Lena was cooperative. Law enforcement officials reported that she admitted to orchestrating her disappearance to regain attention and influence online engagement. She described her motives as stemming from anxiety over declining popularity, pressure from brand obligations, and a personal desire to feel noticed in an increasingly competitive digital space. Digital forensics revealed a carefully planned and executed operation: staged abandonment of her vehicle, scheduled social media content, hotel reservations under false names, and deliberate misinformation designed to mislead both authorities and the public. Investigators noted the sophistication of the plan, but also highlighted critical oversights, including her digital footprint and minor transactional traces. The news of her capture spread quickly, with global media outlets reporting the story as both shocking and instructive. Social media users reacted with disbelief, anger, and curiosity. Many expressed frustration at the manipulation, while others engaged in discussions about the psychological pressures faced by influencers in the digital age. Brands that had previously paused campaigns issued statements emphasizing caution and corporate responsibility, while analysts highlighted the risks associated with influencer culture and the social media attention economy. Experts in digital psychology commented on the case as a demonstration of the complex interplay between online identity, perception, and behavior. Court proceedings followed, during which Lena Hart faced charges related to filing false reports and public deception. She publicly acknowledged the harm caused, expressing remorse for the stress and anxiety her actions inflicted on family, friends, fans, and authorities. Investigators concluded that while her disappearance was meticulously planned, the combination of digital forensics, eyewitness accounts, and coordinated investigative efforts ensured her apprehension. The case became a reference point for law enforcement and media analysts studying influencer behavior and social media manipulation. In the months following her arrest, Lena Hart's story became a cautionary tale. It served as both a warning to social media users about the dangers of obsessive engagement and a reminder of the responsibilities that accompany digital influence. The case remains a notable example of how the pursuit of attention and control online can have real-world consequences.